Once again, welcome to the War Room as we continue on our path to turn Korea into a pan-Pacific empire. In the last episode, we discovered the New World decades, at least 2 decades, before the Europeans did, and in this episode we are going to discover more lands. We are going to start settling the lands that we discover until the Americas become our rightful domains. Now, at the same time, we are also exploring the Western Ocean in order to find the sea route to Europe, because when we get there, we are going to engage in quite a few shenanigans with the European nations and especially the European cultures. Wink wink, nudge nudge. So, let us begin. This episode is mostly going to focus on colonizing around the Pacific. For now, I'm going to ignore Australia. The resources in general are not really worth it. And honestly, it's Australia. We would probably get eaten by spiders or bitten by snakes or something funky like that. And you know, the drop bears. You definitely don't want to mess with the drop bears in this region. Amongst our more short-term to medium-term goals, however, is going to be moving the capital from Kaesong to Donghae. Now, Kaesong itself is a pretty okay capital for the start of the game, but it has a very little natural harbor suitability. Donghae, to the contrary, has 80% natural harbor suitability. It's one of the best natural harbors in all of East Asia. In fact, let me see here. I think it's just simply the best natural harbor, except for, of course, Hong Kong and, you know, the Hong Kong area. And it's basically what we can get. I mean, technically, this over here is better. It's got 100%. I think this is the future site of Vladivostok, if I'm not mistaken. But Donghae is going to be very centrally located in our empire, so we will be able to exert control and, you know, propagate proximity both into Korea, both into the west coast of Korea, and also into the east coast of Korea, and also eastwards and southwards into Japan. At the same time, Donghae sits at the mouth of a fairly significant Korean river. Not only does this reduce our cost to move into the sea, because natural harbor suitability gives you a flat proximity impact through port as you grow it, but it even allows us to propagate proximity further inland, all the way over here to Senduk, and we will be able to make additional use of both the gold and silver mines here, the iron mines here, as well as important population centers, important cities such as Jinju and Gyeongju, compared to keeping our capital in the Kaesong area. So this is not going to be cheap. I will have to save up 35,000 ducats. So once we have another 20,000 saved up, which should happen in a bit over 1.5 years, I'm going to start the process of moving our capital to the heart of our empire in Donghae. And we have more than enough money to move our capital to Donghae. I'm going to start the move. This is going to take us about 6 years. 6 months. Thankfully not 6 years. And once this is done, we will have our proximity pushing in all 4 directions from Donghae. Now, we do have a local governor in Jinju, which I'm going to destroy as soon as our capital has been moved. And we are going to build a new local governor in Kaesong, our old capital, because this is still a tremendously wealthy location. And the town of Yangju, which is very close to Kaesong, is even more fabulously wealthy thanks to their silver mines. So having a local governor up north in this general area is going to be immensely helpful. And we also have a couple decently wealthy towns up north, so having some proximity pushing in this area through this river system as well as the southern river system is definitely going to be helpful. We have also unlocked our first major workshop, the paper workshop, and we are going to be upgrading all of the paper guilds, the paper makers guilds, in both our home market and in the newly acquired lands around Kyoto to this new building type. This is definitely going to cost us quite a bit, so let's see. Interesting. Very interesting. The button is still open, but it does not allow us to upgrade anymore. I think you can only upgrade 3 workshops at once. Oh, if I were to remove the available peasants, and even this one, because this is just an upgrade, this shouldn't consume any more building limit. There we go, that's a few more. And I guess over time we're going to keep building them up, or rather upgrading them, which is going to increase our profits a bit more. But of course it costs as much as building 2 paper guilds to upgrade 1 paper workshop from a guild. So actually the return on investment for these isn't exactly all that great. But at the same time, this does not consume any additional building levels, and it brings with it a few additional benefits. I believe, for example, that the workshops employ slightly more people. Is there any way I can see this? Yes. So the workshops will employ another 50 burgers for each level, which is definitely going to be useful. And they are also going to have access to more efficient production methods. So, you know, they're just going to upgrade everything and consider it another mid-game money sink that we simply have to throw money into. We have a new king, when I'm not really satisfied with him compared to the old king who had 197 and 86 stats. But, you know, this is still decent. I'll take this. And this is just in time because we have also finished moving our capital to Dongnei, and the effects have been significant already. We get an additional 15 to 20% max control across the western coast of Japan, and this is going to probably improve even further because we are still paying a hefty amount to disembark from the ship back to the western Japanese coast. And if we manage to build up a couple regional hubs in locations with high natural harbor suitability, that's definitely going to push the proximity cost down further. I've also destroyed the local governor in Jinju, because honestly it wasn't really doing much, and we are going to start building a new local governor up north in Kaesong, because the maximum control here has already dropped to 86%, so it will be nice to bring it up a little bit more. Although in this case, I think having the local governor here would only impact the proximity control impact by another 9%, so I'm not quite convinced if it's going to be worth it. At the same time, as I've said, Kaesong is fabulously wealthy, and we will be able to get a little bit more proximity push in the north by having our local governor here. We can also hold our parliament. I'm going to do it in Dongnei, and I think I'm going to promote state religion. We might not be able to pass this one because we actually desire to get a couple law changes through this parliament. So let's get bellicose movement, increase support, and increase opinion. Alright, so we should be able to get either 2 law changes or 1 law change plus a promote state religion. I am definitely going to go to slave conversion here and change this to allow a slave religion, which is going to give us a bit of humanist push, and more importantly it's going to free us from the spiritualist push of the forced slave conversion law. And this is important because obviously we are trying to encourage humanism. We want to move away from spiritualism now that most of our country is Shinto already. At the same time, I'm going to get another increased opinion. And gosh, I really do want to promote state religion, but we definitely need to get rid of a couple other laws here. Mostly the same religion in air religion law. And so I guess I'm going to just go for it. Again, we've converted most of our country to Shinto, so we don't really need the spiritualist push or the extra conversion rate all that much. So we're going to air religion here, and I guess in this scenario I am actually going to choose any religion for, again, the extra humanist push. because we want to get to at least 50 humanists so that we can invoke the exchange of ideas government reform, which is going to give us an additional 5% monthly research progress. And losing our old king is also going to be useful because every time your ruler changes as Korea, you get the factional strife event. In our case, we were patronizing the Sarim faction, who give you a bit of monthly spiritualist push. So instead of that, we are going to go for the Hungu faction, who will give us a bit of crown power and monthly progress to centralization, and simply move us just a little towards centralization on their own. And with the additional... oh, what's that? With the additional centralizing push from the new faction, we should be at 0.01 towards decentralization, which means we can start pushing centralization again as soon as we are done encouraging humanism in our country. We have also unlocked our second level 2 building. We can now upgrade the scriptoriums in our locations to printers shops, and this is going to help us in more than one way. You see, the scriptoriums employ 50 clerics per level, whereas the printers shops employ 250 burghers. Burghers are in general better to have compared to clerics. You want a few clerics, you don't want too many, especially since we get an additional 100 nobles per location through the Confucian schools and academies. Then clerics are really not that useful, and we can't even tax them at all. Now conversely, burghers we are able to tax at a fairly decent rate. It's at 37%. We will be able to increase this even more as time goes on. And at the same time, you are trading 50 clerics for 250 burghers. And the additional 200 people are going to come out of your commoners. So that means 200 fewer peasants in each one of our locations that we have a printing press on, for each level of the printing press. And that means that our literacy is going to go even higher, because at this point we have essentially a 100% literacy cap for our burghers. And another benefit to having printers shops over scriptoriums is that they actually consume lead. If you don't have lead in your local market, this could be a bit of a problem. But in our case, we actually have a vast surplus of lead. Lead is at 33% of its minimum price. So this is actually going to be quite useful. This is going to both push up demand for lead, making our couple lead mines be even more profitable. And also the input goods cost is going to be less compared to the scriptoriums. So again, I'm going to go ahead here and upgrade as many scriptoriums as we can to printer shops. And it did cost us about 3,000 ducats, but that's okay. We can just, fiddle with the sliders a bit here and get our economy back on track. And well, we have sighted land in Upper California. We have maps of California now. Unfortunately, we can't colonize this land yet, but as soon as we set up a couple colonies in British Columbia, in Cascadia, we should easily be able to get a colony going up around San Francisco. The resources around California aren't all that useful, honestly. I guess the mercury we could have a bit of use for, but other than that, it's fish lumber, a bit of fur, but it's very much inland, so it's not going to be all that useful. I'm not sure if we have events for like the California Gold Rush. It's a bit outside the scope of the game, so I wouldn't be surprised if these resources are going to be all that we get. But I think that would be a nice late game addition if Paradox eventually decides to make more events for the late game. For now, I'm going to wait until we see a bit more of the land in the northwest, and then we're going to start colonizing into the Americas. It's kind of funny that we got maps of the Colombia interior before we got maps of the Colombia coast. Like, what did you guys do? Did you teleport from the coast to the interior without going through these lands first? But that's just the way that exploration works in this game. So we're still going to wait a bit before we get maps of the coastline. And in the meantime, back home, our colonization of Hokkaido is complete. I'm definitely not going to keep this in our country because, I mean, not with that sort of control. There is a case to be made here that we could keep Kameda and plop down a naval governor here later on when we move out of Osaka. But I believe that the locations here, so Katsushika and Toshima, are going to be better, especially Katsushika, because we can plop down a naval governor here and we will be able to use the river to reduce our cost to go out in the sea. Moving our capital to Dongne has also made Osaka obsolete as a governor location, because even now the area around Osaka is getting its proximity from Dongne, and this means that we can continue annexing the more easterly daimyo in Japan. And eventually, as I said before, I want to move the naval governor here to Katsushika, so that we can both use the river system and we can use the eastern coast of Japan to propagate further proximity. I'm going to increase our diplomatic spending a bit, or even better, I'm going to cancel the spy network on Kilwa, and we're going to start annexing all of these daimyo in this area. Well, it turns out I can't create a subject in Hokkaido because I've already cored this land, because somehow we moved in so many people that most of this land is 100% Korean, or at least, 70% Korean. So what we're going to do instead is I'm going to feed all of Hokkaido to our vassal, the country of Rikuo, instead. And then we're probably going to either annex these guys, or maybe just, transfer their lands to another vassal until they only have a single location remaining up north. But before that, obviously I'm going to get my naval governor here, and then we will see how much control that we can actually exert in eastern Japan. And I'm also going to try out an interesting strategy to move my population around. So I'm going to start expelling pops from Naju, mainly because Naju does not have any significant resource deposits. It's just rice, fish, legumes, and a bit of medicaments, nothing that we need specifically. At the same time, I'm going to take another cabinet member, and I'm going to encourage migration to my new capital, Dongne. Now, if we've set this up right, what's going to happen is the people will be expelled from Naju, and immediately they're going to flock to Dongne, because this location is going to have massive migration attraction. Now, using this, we should easily be able to move 50,000, maybe even 100,000 people from a province, which we definitely don't need, to a location that we definitely need. And it's also possible, if some of these locations in Naju drop below 10,000 people, to build settlements here, and that's actually going to create an insane pop growth engine for you. Now again, you definitely need to put someone on expelling pops, but this guy can go around a few different provinces, usually provinces with low value trade goods, and you can keep expelling people, building up settlements, and that way you should be able to boost your population growth to even 2%, 3%, or even higher levels. But it's going to take you a couple cabinet actions, of course. Being Aragonese colonies in Africa definitely wasn't on my checklist for this run, but I guess here we are. The Europeans are colonizing Africa at a fairly high pace, and I'm willing to bet that they haven't even set up any colonies in the Americas right now. In fact, where are you guys? Grebo. Oh. So Aragon has a colony here, and this, let me guess who you belong to. You belong to Portugal, lovely. Oh, so you're the Aragonese colony. Oh my god. And this, Taboo? Okay, you're an independent nation, but you're Castilian, so you broke free from the crown of Castile, lovely. I have no idea. I think it's, I think there is something to do with AI logic. At the same time, there is an issue with the way that colonization works right now, because you sent a lot of people to the colonies, and a great many of them actually die due to malaria in Africa. But the people who die still count as being sent to the colonies, so they count towards the completion of your colonial charter. And that's why the Europeans are able to colonize Africa at a fairly high rate, even though they shouldn't be able to. So I'm hoping Paradox solves this with the next patch, but of course it's probably going to take a bit longer than that. Until then, I'm going to count ourselves lucky if we are able to establish a couple colonies in Africa, round the Cape, and make our way to Europe without being locked out of the colonial race entirely. Well, it turns out that you can't actually annex your vassals if they are building-based countries, so I am in fact going to cancel their vassal status. We're just going to have to, wait for them to spawn as landed countries, and then we will just have to attack them and kill them off the old-fashioned way, I suppose. We have discovered the southwestern coast of Africa, and I am going to plop down a colony around the Cape here. Let's see. Yeah, that looks okay. This is going to serve as a way station as we move across Africa and as we try to find the way to Europe. And we'll probably plop down another colony up here in the Gulf of Guinea. And after that, it's going to be smooth sailing until we reach Europe. The rights of the burghers law has been unlocked, and obviously I'm going to curtail the burghers here. The 10% extra tax is simply too good to pass. And as soon as this law is implemented, we should be able to extract, let's see, another 150 ducats a month in taxes from the burghers, or even more than that, which is going to be a fairly good addition to our income, considering that the tribute that Chan pays to us also depends on, I believe, either our income or our base tax. If it's the former, if it's income, then this is going to increase tribute payments as well. If it's tax base, it's still nice to have more taxes. Another parliament, and this time around I'm going to expand our paved road network. We're going to use pretty much all the gold that we got to build up new roads across Kyushu and across the other Japanese islands. At the same time, I'm going to get a couple things here. Let's say levy support. Maybe not that one. We definitely want to push even further towards inward, and hopefully we might be able to get either additional taxes or an additional law change out of this parliament. Interestingly enough, devout education is better than education of the masses in pretty much every single way. Like, it does give you a bit of push towards traditionalist, but since we are already at 100% innovative, that's not going to affect us in the slightest. So I am actually going to go for education of the masses and for devout education here. This is also going to reduce our monthly spiritualist push from +10 to +2, and it's going to increase our clergy estate satisfaction equilibrium from 5% to 10%. And it's quite interesting. We have the epic tradition here, which is available to us because we are Shinto, and this actually reduces the cost of increased literacy action and increases the skill of new artists. So this thing here could actually be fairly useful, but the opportunity cost is you can't get religious teachings or devout education for that extra 5% push to literacy across the board. Stealing maps is still 100% a legitimate way of getting your way to Europe. I'm going to steal the Central African coastline from Aragon here, and would you look at that, we have discovered a sea route to Europe. That is just lovely. Now we only need to set up a couple outposts here and there, and we should have more than enough colonial and diplomatic range to reach Europe through the sea route as well as through the overland route through the Middle East. We now have detailed maps of the northwestern coast of North America, and I'm going to start colonizing this new world. Now if we look at the natural harbor suitability map, Wonok is going to be our best bet in the Cascadia region, and it also has a nice little river flowing through it, so I'm going to create a colonial charter here. And most likely we will set up a market here as soon as we have a location colonized. At the same time, I'm now able to get colonies much further south. I have no idea what happened here, but I'm not going to really look a gift horse in the mouth in this case. There should be another river. There we go. So do I want you or do I want you? You're more southwards, so I guess I'm going to take you, and we can even take you. So we're going to get a bit of a colonial setup over here in North America, and of course over time we're going to expand our colonies, because honestly, looking at the resources, this region doesn't really have much that we can make use of. Maybe the fur over here in the Colombian frontier could be somewhat useful, but the real deal, the real big bucks, we're going to make once we hit Mesoamerica, once we are able to get the chilies and the cocoa shipped back to our homelands in East Asia. Our first colonies in the American mainland are done, and that means we can now explore much further south into the western coast of the Americas. I'm going to start queuing up a couple expeditions, both to discover inland North America and to go further south by the coast. So let's go for here. Interesting. Oh, there we go. And the Arido-America Sea is going to be our first discovery. It's interesting that we can actually reach this from Japan, so maybe something bugged out regarding the exploration range. But in any case, we're going to start exploring these new lands. Also, our power of the liturgical language is lagging quite a lot behind what it's supposed to be. This value here can go up to 0.2, it's only at 0.07. There are a couple ways of increasing this. One would be simply converting to a Japanese culture, which would be possible, of course, and it would allow our cultural influence value to actually impact the power of the liturgical language, as well as a couple other values. But in this scenario, I think we should get more than enough language power, simply from the political power of primary culture pops metric. So we now have 20,000-ish primary culture pops, or rather we're getting 20,000 or so political power from our primary culture pops. And if we convert everyone to Korean, that should increase to around 50,000 maybe. And also we would have to build a bunch of new buildings and stuff, but that's alright. Since we are the cultural hegemon, that means we can actually use the convert area action. And in this case, I am actually going to shuffle around my cabinet a bit. We are going to assimilate an whole area into Korean. And I think this is a fairly nice target for our early expansion of Korean. And over time, ideally, we will probably want to convert or assimilate all of Japan into Korean, which is going to be extremely cursed, but you know, such is life. Oh, that is so bad. Just look at the state of the African coast here. Castile, Aragon, and Portugal are just colonizing like mad. Cameroon Plateau is a Portuguese colonial nation. Oh, the border gore just hurts my eyes to look at. I'm going to stay out of Africa. I'm just going to keep our station here, and I'm not going to be bothered with Africa. I'm just going to put down one colonial charter in St. Helena. This shouldn't take very long, and I guess afterwards we're probably going to hop into Brazil and then use the station in Brazil to hop over to Europe. Thanks to our base in St. Helena, we should be able to discover the Caribbean, or I guess we could simply steal maps from Portugal. Let's see if they have maps of... Interesting, it doesn't look like... Nope. It looks like Portugal is yet to discover the Caribbean, so we're going to be the first. And I'm going to queue up this exploration here. It will come from St. Helena, so I'm hoping that we have enough goods in the local market. And let's choose you. And soon enough we will have maps not only of the western coast, but also of the eastern coast of the Americas. At the same time, I'm also able to queue up a couple explorations of Mexico in the west coast. So we're kind of closing in on the most valuable areas of the Americas, the Mesoamerica and Caribbean areas, both from the west and from the east. And the goal here is to, of course, colonize this general region, make use of their insane RGOs, and ship everything we got back to home. Oh, we got the first literati purge. You can actually do this 3 times, as in you get 3 flavor events named first, second, and third literati purge. And honestly, these are just bad. Like, these are bad no matter how you look at them. In this case, we can choose between pissing off the burghers, but our nobility and clergy get a bit of satisfaction, and this Giga Chad dies. Or we can purge the nobility instead. You know, same thing in reverse, but this guy lives. In this case, I'm just going to maintain political balance. We lose a bit of stability, but, you know, given the amount of money that we're making, stability is going to be fairly easy to come by anyways. A new king, and he does have pretty decent abilities. Lovely. Also, he is an admiral, which we should probably cancel. And he has a Saigoku culture. Gosh. Honestly, I feel like we should have just converted to Japanese. We should have just bit that bullet, because right now we're getting peanuts from the power of the liturgical language. Our average literacy has capped out. Honestly, there really isn't much else we can do to increase our research progress at this point. And maybe this is going to get better once we have converted everyone to Korean. But I guess if we just went ahead and converted everyone to Saigoku instead, we probably would have had more or better language power for Japanese. But anyways, we made our decision. We are converting a lot of people to Korean, and it's coming along quite nicely because we can assimilate entire areas now, so there is that. So in this case, I'm just going to be happy that our king is Japanese, and keep doing what I was doing in general. And also, I'm definitely going to stop him from being an admiral, so that he doesn't die early. Colony of Chinook has now fulfilled its role, and the entire province has been colonized. We could technically get another market here, but honestly, I don't see the reason why. These markets are probably going to get better access as the game goes on, so I think we're okay with 2 markets in the western coast. And since we want to keep the market centers to ourselves, I'm going to release Chinook as a new colonial subject. And I'm probably going to give most of the land in this area to them. I'm probably going to create another colonial subject here and feed the basin to them. And of course, we're going to have a 3rd colonial subject down in California. And we are finally getting into the good parts of the Americas, where they have chili and dyes and everything nice. So I guess I'm going to start another colony here. Let's see, natural harbor suitability. We don't have any really suitable natural harbors on the west coast of Mexico, but at least we have a river here, so we'll probably make use of this, and we'll probably plop down a market center here. That's going to be nice and even with the Chochenyo market. And then obviously we have more expeditions going on further into Mexico, and once those are done, we will have maps over the region and we will finally be able to subjugate the natives. Also, since we now have way more than 50 humanists, we are able to adopt the exchange of ideas government reform. This is going to give us a 5% monthly research and honestly not much else, but again, if we are research maxing, we are going to get everything that we can get, because that's going to push our research progress above 3.30, maybe into 3.35, which is still nice. And we're also going to get an extra local governor, but of course we have nowhere to put it in. Maybe actually, you know what? There is a possibility of putting it over here in the northwest, or maybe somewhere deeper inland, somewhere like here, because this area actually has... Oh, never mind. I was thinking about here and here, so let's see. I'm going to look around a bit, see if we have any decent locations where we can plop down a local governor, and if so, we are definitely going to urbanize more and build one. Also, I think that Shenyang has outlived its usefulness as a buffer state at this point, so I'm going to start annexing them as well. This is going to take 20 years, so we aren't in any hurry, we can afford to wait. And we're also annexing our other vassals in Japan, so consider that as well. So far we have discovered Guyana and parts of Brazil, and it looks like Portugal is for once actually colonizing Brazil. And in this case, I am going to set up a small colony over here in Guyana. Let's see here. I don't intend to really do much with this, and we don't really have all that decent goods in this region anyways. But this is going to serve us as yet another base in further explorations into the eastern coast of North America, and also as a stepping stone towards Europe. Our annexation of Hitachi is complete, and that means we can urbanize this location, and once it has become a city, we're going to plop down a naval governor here, because we destroyed the one in Osaka, and obviously it's you know, taking a bit too long to get from our capital to eastern Japan. The internal areas are at basically zero proximity, so it's going to be nice having an additional naval governor here, and we will be able to propagate proximity on both coasts using the river network here. And woohoo, another literati purge. Now, from what I know historically, these purges kinda destroyed Korea's literati, and they were quite instrumental in the breakdown of Korean society and Korean advancement in general. And I think part of the reason why the Hangul alphabet didn't really catch on during this period was the literati purges. So they should definitely have a higher impact on your literacy, on your research progress. Right now, these are just fluff events. And I guess I'm going to just lose a bit of stability, which is less than ideal. We have minus 49, but you know, it's easy to recover stability. In fact, I think I'll just lose legitimacy on this one. Better to lose estate satisfaction now than to lose estate satisfaction equilibrium and how to pay it back with the stability slider. And we're going to create a new colonial subject, this time for California in the colony of Homo. With that, we have 2 colonial nations already in the west coast, and again I presume we're going to build a couple more, maybe one over here and one over in Alaska, but they are lower priority compared to going south, which in this case is going pretty well actually. We've got a bunch of expeditions going on around the Caribbean, and hopefully soon enough we will have maps of most of Mexico and the Caribbean. We've discovered pretty much all of the western coast of the Americas at this point, and in fact we are down in South America as well. We've got a line of sight over the Andes, but more importantly we have discovered this region here, and if you look at the resource map, this region is going to be our first big hit, which is cocoa, chili, gold, gems, everything that we could ask for from a colony. So let's see, over here maybe? Yep, looks good. Do we have a river? Yep, definitely we do. And in that case, I'm probably going to set up shop in this location, and we are probably going to create a colony in this area, and I'm going to feed everything in the western coast of Colombia to that colony. We're also discovering the remainder of the Panaman Colombian coast here. And I'm fairly certain that this area in general has really nice resources. And this is going to be probably our first profitable venture in the new world, because honestly, so far, we haven't really gained much in terms of resources. And we also have discovered most of Mesoamerica. I'm not quite sure what I want to do here. Interesting. So the Purepecha don't have a lot of vassals. What about these guys? Oh, oh, they're all vassals of whoever these guys are. Interesting. It's usually a bad thing for there to be a single large entity in Mesoamerica, because then you have to fight them again and again, and I guess that's what we will have to do when eventually we come around to colonizing Mexico. I'm going to create a third colonial nation here, mainly so that I can feed them all of the rich fur areas, and this is going to be our new colonial subject of the Columbia Basin. And I'm going to start another colony here, this time on the eastern coast of the Americas. So this location over here has a decent natural harbor suitability. It lies basically at the northern end of the Amazon. Or is this the Amazon? I'm not sure, I don't think it's the Amazon. But we are going to set up shop here. And I'm not sure whether we'll put a market here. I think the Caribbean might be better. At the same time, this will allow us to explore a bit further, and it's usually good to have multiple locations that you can launch expeditions from. And for our final colony on the west coast, we are going to set up another colonial subject, this time in Alaska. And we're going to feed them everything in this general area. Again, the Colombian basin is going to get the basin, Chinook is going to get everything around here, and Como is going to get California. And then we will have possibly a couple more subjects down there, so definitely one here for Mexico, and definitely one here for Colombia. And the rest we will eventually see. So at this point we basically have all of the advances that we're interested in getting from the Age of Discovery. And I'm going to double back, and I'm going to get everything that we did not research in the Age of Renaissance, which comes down to around 29 additional advances. Again, if you're researching text from a previous age, you get a discount. So in the interest of getting all advances in this run, we will attempt to circle back whenever we can and research previous age advances, rather than focusing on advances from the current age. I've queued up 29 researches, and it takes us a bit more than 6 months to get one technology research. We have more than 3 research progress per month, and each technology costs slightly less than 20. So I'm guessing we will have all Age of Renaissance advances by 1526, and then we can even get maybe another 10, 11 Age of Discovery advances, which is going to be pretty nice. So I'm actually quite content with our pace of research so far. But the real problem is going to start in the Age of Reformation, since normally we won't be getting any important literacy bonuses, and the cost of the tax is going to increase by another 15%. So we'll have to figure something out about what to do in the next stage. Culiacan has also been colonized fully, and as usual I'm going to get another market here. And as soon as this market is created, we are going to get another colonial nation somewhere out here. Although, let me make sure. Is this the location? Well, yes. I mean, there aren't any good harbors on the west coast, as I mentioned. This does not have a river. And what about you? You don't have a river either. Having a river, I find that it counts more than actually getting natural harbor suitability in the current version of the game, simply because I believe you pay the river cost when you're heading out into the sea and when you're coming back inland if you embark or come back from a location with a river. Conversely, if you're doing it from a location without a river, it's going to cost you 40, which is then going to get modified by the natural harbor suitability. And we have discovered Cuba. So this is going to be our initial base in the Caribbean. We will probably expand into the other islands as well eventually, but Cuba is going to be pretty nice and a pretty solid beginning because of the ample chili and cocoa that grows in the island. I'm going to start from the southeast most likely. Are there any rivers here? No, apparently not. Let's see. In that case, we're going to set up shop around Guantanamo and we will keep this area to ourselves. We will probably set up a market center in Guantanamo and then we'll probably get one subject in Cuba, one in Hispaniola, and maybe one down here in the island chain. It is the year 1517 and we have finally annexed our longtime union partner Shenyang. Since Shenyang has been annexed, the union has been dissolved. This means that we can change our succession laws more freely and we can probably enter into various other arrangements. And if you look at our borders, this isn't even all that gory. Like, I think these are the natural borders of Korea. These look very fine and handsome to me. A major problem here is that our average literacy has dropped by, oh god, 3%. But that's quite alright. I'm going to urbanize this area quickly and our literacy will go back to its previous levels. And if we were to look at the literacy map mode, I mean, it's acceptable. It's mostly around 40-50%. So it's not going to take that long to get these guys up to speed with our latest developments. And there's just so much cocoa here that it would be amiss if we didn't create a colonial charter. So I'm also going to grab that. As a plus, we also have plenty of rivers in this region, and we should be able to use them to exercise control more effectively once we have spun this colony out to a colonial nation. And by annexing Shenyang, we finally have managed to acquire a location where it makes sense to plop down a local governor. I'm going to get one here in Liaoyang, and this should provide us with a decent bit of proximity across the former lands of Shenyang, which is going to be useful because these guys they were even worse urbanizers than we are. Just look at how many cities there are. Just look at that. And a bunch of rivers as well. And I'm guessing these all have pound lock canals and bridges. And if not, we're definitely going to build them. And here it is, the third literati perch. And you know what they say, third time's the charm. Honestly, I wish this had more lasting effects. But for now, I guess we're just going to deal with it. I'm just going to pick this reform or this option, and that's going to be it for the purges. Honestly, this is just a tiny little bit of extra historical flavor right now, but this could be so much more if they tied this to different mechanics, to stuff like literacy, research progress, maybe give more permanent estate satisfaction bonuses or penalties. That kind of stuff, that would just be lovely. And our colony of Atacames has also matured. We are going to form our first colonial subject in South America here. Let me make sure that we got the market. Yes, so this is going to become a new colonial subject. And I am going to build up their chili and cocoa plantations. And we're going to plop down a few more colonies in this region to help them grow. And we have also discovered quite a bit of the continental, what will become the continental United States. I'm going to set up shop in the Hudson area and we'll probably create another market here eventually. And I'm not quite sure whether we will create colonial nations in the eastern seaboard. There is fur here. Strangely enough, there isn't any tobacco. I guess you have to build plantations for it. For some reason I remember there being, oh, there we go, some tobacco here. Interesting. But yeah, the tobacco is also going to be fairly expensive back home in Asia, as soon as we send some over by trade and start creating demand for it. And if you look at our general map, the west coast has been thoroughly colonized. We are working in South America. We've got a couple colonies set up in Colombia. I'm very hopeful. I have very high hopes about Atacamas, simply because they have a plenty of cocoa and chili. And we will probably expand our domains in this general area as well as soon as the explorations here are done. And we have officially researched every single advance from the Age of Renaissance and from the Age of Traditions. Our entire backlog has been finished, and we only have 26 advances remaining in the Age of Discovery. We have 12 years remaining in this age, so I'm fairly confident that we'll be able to knock out another 10, maybe 12 of these, leaving us with fewer than 15 advances that we will have to research in the Age of Reformation. And the Age of Reformation itself has relatively few advances. It only has 110 compared to 113 for Discovery, and a whopping 127 for Renaissance. And I'm hoping that by the end of the Age of Reformation, we will have practically everything researched, and in the Age of Absolutism, we can reliably get to 100% literacy across our country. Okay, maybe not across our country, but you know, in our urban location, and that's going to bring our average literacy above 95% for sure. So I'm really happy with the way that research has been going in this game, and I'm also quite happy with the way that our colonies have been developing. In the west coast, we've got practically everything that we need. We've got Alaska, we've got California, we've got Cascadia. Our colonies are nice and neat with tidy borders, and we're expanding into Mexico as well. And our colonies down in Colombia, oh, I have such high hopes for them. And even our colonization of Cuba is coming along splendidly. I'm fairly confident that we will have this island, as well as Hispaniola and the remaining islands in the Caribbean, by the end of the Age of Discovery. I'm not going to get involved much in North American affairs for the time being. We will probably try to take over the tobacco locations though. Definitely want to ship that sweet nicotine back home to East Asia. And this was going to be our major colonial episode. I think we've accomplished most of our goals, and even some more, I would say, because in the next episode we are going to delve into European affairs. Even though I'm happy with the way that our research progress has been coming along, there is still more that we can do, and honestly, it would be a mess if I did not engage in a few shenanigans over here in Europe, some of which you're definitely going to enjoy watching, and some of which might simply destroy our country. But of course, that's a topic for another episode. So thank you all for watching. The series is coming along quite nicely. Viewership is up, which is quite unexpected. Usually, over time, people stop watching series like this. In this case, every episode I post gets more viewers within the first 24 hours, which is, well, definitely unexpected. So thank you all for watching, and if you are enjoying the series so far, and if you're not subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. And I guess I will see you all once again in the war room.